Everyone laughed at the ISO coin narrative, but now we have a regulated ETP for XDC, an XRP ETF live, and even filings for XLM. The interesting part, the US government was just in shutdown, not anymore. Those institutional filings were sitting on the sidelines. Everything is reopening, and the liquidity is flooding in for all free cryptocurrencies. So it's not a question of whether institutions are coming, it's which cryptocurrencies they are choosing. That is what we are talking about today. So if you own these free cryptos or just enjoy watching the videos, be sure to leave a like down below. And with that said, let's get straight into the video. Okay, so a quick reminder, for every video that we make on the channel, this is not financial advice and for entertainment purposes only. Nothing in cryptocurrency is guaranteed and you could lose all of your money. Stay safe and do your own research. So the government shutdown is over, volume is back, and the ETF decisions are now in play once again. And we do have an XRP ETF. Now, most people do not actually care. They think it's going to do nothing for XRP's price. I think the opposite, right? Because most people believe, or they see the XRP has been available in the open market for years. Why would people now buy? Well, it's the same reason Bitcoin has seen tens of billions in terms of inflows. It's not so much about availability, it's about accessibility, right? It means that XRP will be available on traditional financial platforms that wealth managers and family offices can now buy confidently, right? No seed phrases, no exchanges, and no hacks. So it's crypto inside their existing systems. Now we have a numerous amount of XRP ETF applications. Some of these asset managers have billions under management, some have trillions. Now, if we want to get an idea of what sort of capital inflows we are going to see for XRP, we have to look at the prior ones, Bitcoin and Ethereum. Now, on the bad side, the largest inflows we have seen are from BlackRock and Fidelity, and unfortunately, they have not filed for an XRP ETF just yet. BlackRock's main reasoning, from my point of view, is because there's still a level of regulatory ambiguity, right? When you look at a record like that only being rejected once, they want 100% pristine, full clarity. And we've seen this process play out before, right? Grayscale versus the SEC over the denial of the spot Bitcoin ETF. Once that was finalized, we've seen a lot of asset managers file for the Bitcoin ETF. So even though XRP is not a security, there are still steps in place, and until it is fully done, BlackRock will not file. The headline risk is gone, but not for these asset managers. And Fidelity is second in terms of volume for the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs, so they will likely follow suit as well. Now, on the positive part for XRP, if we look at both of these ETFs, a large seller has been Grayscale. Now, as we know on the channel, this is very bullish for XRP, as Grayscale created heavy sell pressure for Bitcoin and Ethereum because their trust traded at a discount and redemptions forced them to sell their Bitcoin and Ethereum. XRP does not have that problem. Grayscale sold the majority of their XRP back in 2020, so XRP will have limited sell pressure. And that combined with a problem that is only temporary, right? BlackRock and Fidelity will eventually file for an XRP ETF. I would say with the approval, XRP is in a better position than Bitcoin and Ethereum when their ETFs were approved. And the ETFs itself are no longer in waiting. We have an actual approval, XRP hitting record volumes, $250 million worth in inflows, beating BlackRock for the Bitcoin ETF. Keep in mind the size comparison from Canary Capital to BlackRock, beating those volumes over 2x. The Crypto.com CEO stating XRP could reach 8 billion within the first year, maybe even exceeding that in my personal opinion, and the Bitwise ETF coming up next. So when we talk about capital inflows, the liquidity is already here, and that's why XRP is probably going to be the biggest split percentage of the portfolio. Now moving on to the second cryptocurrency, we have Stellar XLM. Now XLM is always going to be overshadowed by XRP, and the capital inflows are not going to equal what XRP is getting and going to get in the future, but it's still a decent crypto that deserves a spot in my portfolio and will take a considerable split between the three. Now, there is an ETF filing. Again, most people are not aware of this because they're too focused on XRP, But it is important, right? This crypto is not in the top five. It's ranked 15 out of all cryptocurrencies. It's not digital gold. It's not a B2B Titan, but what it is a utility cryptocurrency. And with millions of cryptocurrencies being created every single month, very few have ETF filings, ETP filings, or even treasury companies stacking up. But for some reason, the utility cryptos we have been talking about on the channel since 2022 are getting chosen time and time again, including XLM. Now, XLM always gets dismissed because people think it's retail, it's low volume, but they don't realize XLM is the bridge for crypto to cash infrastructure in over 770 plus countries. When you look at the off ramp and on ramp locations, there are more than Bitcoin for off. And when you account for the fact that we're seeing integration into the top payment processors like Visa and MasterCard, and in terms of total value locked for RWAs, which will be the next narrative of the future bull runs, we have XLM Stellar at ranked 7. So volume is not a problem for Stellar, but in terms of the actual ETFs, we have none yet. This is projected, and we'll take that into consideration for the final portfolio split. Now, on to the last cryptocurrency, we have XDC, where we have an actual ETP. So 21 shares, ETP 20.8 million under management. Now, this may look very low at first, but we have to take consideration that XDC is ranked 71 out of all cryptocurrencies. Most cryptos don't have an ETP, right? Traditional finance, XDC is still viewed as a speculative altcoin. We are still in the early stages, the early phase. The door is open, but we're at the ground floor. As partnerships adoption increases, so will the volumes. But if we go to 21 shares, crypto ETP hitting 500 million assets. Back in 2018, when it was first launched, we only seen $5 million worth in assets. In over 2 years, jumping to 77 million. We're comparable to 2018 with XDC. So if XDC follows the same growth, we can see that jump from 20 million to 300 million within 2 years. Let's also not forget that they're still in the process of applying for an ETF in the States. XDC, not even in the top 50, miles behind XLM, but still moving very close in terms of progress with ETFs, ETPs. Still no treasury companies for both of these assets. We have seen that for XRP, and it's really playing into the final percentage results. So there is volume currently available for XDC and XLM, but it pales in comparison to XRP. So my final portfolio split for these three assets is always been around the same percentages. We have XRP at the most at 60%. It has momentum. It has the ETF filings actually approved, Bitwise lined up, and still in waiting for BlackRock and Fidelity to file. And XLM and XDC are in the same category. Do have volume in terms of RWA, CDS partnerships in play, but none from actual asset managers piling in with ETFs approved. But to me personally, the split doesn't actually matter. It's about owning cryptocurrencies that are part of the future. Right? When we started this channel, there was no cryptocurrencies that had ETPs, ETFs, and there wasn't treasury companies buying at all. Now we have cryptocurrencies like XDC, XLM, XRP, Tau, and many more that will continue to see this institutional demand. And it really just signals why we are holding these cryptocurrencies. We are merely following smart money. So when we have these big, news events like the biggest liquidation event in history, or even if we have cryptocurrencies, utility cryptocurrencies that are underperforming so far, I don't really care. Because when it comes to the long term, I know these cryptocurrencies have a higher value than the majority of cryptos in the market. But that is going to be pretty much it for today's video. I just want to recap what we're seeing with the ETPs, the ETFs, and the filings, and how this is going to progress over the months and years ahead. But if you made it this far in the video, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.